So today on the Button Up Podcast, we have Tan Pham, founder of Asian Efficiency. How's it going, Tan?
And hey, how's it going? Good to be here, and thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I started following the Asian Efficiency after Menfluential last year, but the past year it's been one of like the staple podcasts in my week, and so I know a little bit of your story, but I can't wait to hear a little bit more about where you grew up and how you started Asian Efficiency.
I was born and raised in the Netherlands, so I was there till I was 18. And after finishing high school, I went to college in Los Angeles, and then I dropped out after 2 years, and I started working full time at this life coaching business in LA. And when I got promoted, I was like really overwhelmed with all the new responsibilities and tasks and the things that I had to do. And so I felt like, man, I need to figure this out because I was so behind on work. I was losing clients. And so I started to study productivity, thinking that, if I can just be more efficient and more effective, then I can get ahead at work again and stay on top of things and make sure that I'm accountable for all the things that I need to report to. So I started reading a bunch of productivity books, studying like Brian Tracy, Tony Robbins, and all these different people on like success and, how to like be more accomplished in life. And so I started to kind of like learn from them, and some things kind of worked for me, some things didn't, some things kind of like put me back. And eventually I kind of figured out my own system. And over time I was able to then like read 35 books in 1 year, listen to 21 audio books, and travel to several countries and lose like 20 pounds. And so I was like, oh man, this is amazing. And then people started noticing this, and they started to ask me questions about like, Tan, how did you do that? Or how do you approach like your to-do list, and how do you manage your time and such? And so I thought, oh, let's start a blog about this. And that's where Asian Efficiency was born, because that's kind of like the name that people gave me, because they thought I was efficient because I was Asian. But, it couldn't be further from the truth. So it was all, kind of like figuring out on my own, like how to be productive and how to be efficient. And then I just start sharing every single week where I read a blog post and just shared what I knew. And from there, after 6 months or so, from publishing every single week and just showing up to do that for my friends and family, it just took a life of its own, and then it accidentally turned into a business. So I'm super fortunate to be able to do something that I'm really passionate about, and also making that a business as well.
Yeah, so what took you to LA from the Netherlands? Did you always want to make it to the States?
Yeah, so my grandparents lived in Los Angeles at that time. And when I was 6 years old, my parents had just enough money to send me to the States. So we were first generation immigrants. My parents were working on the farm, blue collar workers. And they were saving up money so that they can send me to to my grandparents, their parents, so that they could continue to work full time on the farm and make, some extra money. And then I would be, in the States during the summer. And so I had a really amazing time. I was actually staying at my grandparents for a little bit, and then I stayed at my uncle, who is my mom's brother, and he was, studying for his PhD at that time. And so when I was staying with him, this guy was like, 25, 27 or something, single as you can be, and doesn't know anything about raising a kid or taking care of a kid. So all he did was take me to Olive Garden, give me McDonald's every day, take me to like Six Flags and like Universal Studios. And I thought, man, I have the most amazing life ever. This is so fun. Like, I want to live here. So ever since I was 6, I said, man, I really want to live in Los Angeles. So since then, I made it my dream, and I made every decision since then to kind of figure out like, how do I get to the States? So I changed schools. I like learned English. I learned like all these different things just to set myself up to be able to move to the States. And then eventually I did.
Yeah, you basically hit the kid jackpot there. That sounds pretty cool. So what year then?
That's America in a nutshell,
Yeah.
right? Olive Garden, Six Flags.
Yeah,
McDonald's. Yep.
American dream. So what year then do you start blogging?
So this was back in 2011. I remember reading like Gary Vaynerchuk's first book, on like how to follow your passion and like, do what you love. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm really passionate about productivity and being efficient and breaking things down and creating systems around that sort of stuff. I was never good at it, but I was really passionate about it. So as I was studying that at that time, I thought, okay, let me just start blogging. And I think, that made the most sense at that time. And so I just started blogging back in 2011, and I haven't missed a publishing date in like 8 years now. So we publish every single Tuesday on the blog, and now on the Monday we release a podcast as well. So it was just something that back then blogging was like the thing to do, right? Back in 2011, like YouTube wasn't that big at that time, and blogging was like the main vehicle for people to kind of like consume content. That's when RSS feeds were still like a thing. And
Rest
so
in peace. Rest
just
in peace,
doing that.
Google Reader.
Oh man, I loved Google
So
Reader.
did I.
That was one of my favorite tools.
Yeah, I miss that a lot. So then you start blogging, and then you're still doing your full-time job. When does it start to get you said 6 months, but when does it start to get some more traction?
Yeah, about 6 months in, we started to get a lot of traffic from all these different websites, and people just started emailing me and saying, "Hey, I really love your content. Where can I buy some of your stuff or hire you for coaching or whatever?" And I had to say, well, this is just, free. Like, this is just a passion project of mine. Like, I have nothing for sale. And then a few months later, it just kept coming over and over and over. And I thought, oh man, maybe I should turn this into a business. So me and my business partner at the time, we turned it into a business, and we just started creating courses based on the stuff that we already shared on the blog. So every piece of information was already technically free, but we just kind of packaged it up and made it more convenient for people to kind of go through the content, and made it more actionable and simple for people to go through, and kind of give them like a learning path to get a specific outcome. And so from there, it just took a life of its own.
Going back for a second to pre-Asian efficiency, how did you go from like Six Flags and Olive Garden to working in life coaching?
Yeah, so when I was in college, I went there for the first year, and I was always interested in like personal development and stuff like that. So I kept reading books, and one of the first books I've ever read was Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was like 13. And it was actually the book that inspired me to start my first business when I was 14. I had my web development like agency at that time, so I started freelancing first. I taught myself how to code and program. And interesting fact, I was one of the first people who created the public RSS feed reader in PHP that people could use for like open source stuff. And so when I published that, I was able to get a lot of clients, because that's when RSS was like slowly kind of like making the interwebs. And people were using my script at that time to kind of like interpret and parse RSS feeds. And so that got me a lot of clients when I was 14. And so as I started to hire more people, and like I started to teach my friends how to code, and we kind of like built this small web development agency. And so I had that for like 4 or 5 years before I sold it to a friend of mine, because I was just focused in college. And so when I was in college, I just kept reading books about business and like personal development and stuff like that. And then one day I went to a seminar by this life coach in Los Angeles, and I was so inspired by him that I went up to him and I said, "Hey, I loved your talk. I know you're in Los Angeles as well. Like, I would love to take you out for lunch sometime." And he agreed to that. So we went out for lunch a few weeks later, and then I guess he saw a lot of potential in me. So he said, "Hey, Tan, you should come like intern for me." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and do that." So I started interning for him for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later, he was like, "Hey, I want you to come work full time for me." And that was when I had to make a decision. And I said, you know what? I'm learning so much more here than I was in school at that time. So after 2 years, I said, okay, let me just drop out, and I'm going to work for him full time. But it was kind of a not so good decision, because I was in the States on a student visa. So when you're on a student visa, you have to stay enrolled in school. So I had to figure out a way, and basically could work for him for full time for 1 year. And then I had to go back to school. And then what ended up happening was I worked for him for a year, and then I forgot to enroll back into school. And so a few months later, I got a letter saying, "Hey, it doesn't seem like you're enrolled. We have to take your visa back, so you're going to have to leave the country." So that's when I left the country. And that's when Asian efficiency kind of got started, because I was trying to figure out what to do next. So I just started blogging, and that's where the blog was born.
Nice. And was that, because I know you travel a lot now, was that like the beginning of the travel bug, or were you already traveling?
I've always been a big traveler, when I grew up in the Netherlands, because it's within the EU, it's so easy to travel to places, and especially with Ryanair, around there, you can travel for like 15 euros, which would be like 20 bucks one way somewhere. So as a teenager, I would go to like Czech Republic, I would go to France, and I would, go to Portugal and stuff, because it was just so cheap and it's so easy and accessible. It's kind of like when you're flying from Phoenix to, Austin or something. It's like an hour and a half flight and you're there, right? But in the EU, you're like in a different country where you're, in a different culture and different language. So it was just something I've always really enjoyed. And from that point on, it just kind of continued and kind of like became a hobby of mine.
Nice. And so what was the point where you were like, because I'm sure there was a gap there before like Asian efficiency was, enough to take a salary and all that. Was there like a point where you're like, okay, this is my career now, or this is my focus for the, for the next period of my life?
When we launched our first product, it was called Better Sleep. We were teaching people how to sleep better because sleep is so important for your energy and focus. And the mistake that we made was we had, a small audience at that time, and we had an email list, and we kind of like had communication between our audience and stuff. But the mistake that we made was we were doing research online, and we noticed like a lot of people were having sleep problems, and we noticed that, it was affecting their productivity. So we created this course on sleep. And then we sold it to our own audience. But then when we launched it, it was just like tumbleweeds flying by and crickets, and nobody bought anything. And then that's when we learned like, if we want to create products, we should interview and talk to our own audience, not just random people on the internet. So the first product that we created was a total bomb. And so we said, okay, we need to fix this somehow. So we started to learn about like the lean startup and those kind of ideas, and just like interviewing people and kind of like building a product alongside with them and stuff like that. So instead of doing that for software, we would do that for information products like courses and ebooks and such. And so we started to do that. And then we found out, there's this one program that everybody seems to use, and nobody really knows how to use it. And it's called OmniFocus, one of the most popular task managers on the Mac and iOS. So we started to create a course around that, and we started publishing free content on the blog about OmniFocus, and people really loved it. And then when we launched the course, it just took off. Like it allowed us to go from like, this is a hobby to now being a full-time business, and it basically was able to afford 2 salaries of people. And that's when like we were able to make the transition to go full time. And then from there, we just start hiring people and reinvesting as much as we could, still living on a budget, to just trying to reinvest as much as we could to grow the business and hire others. And then over time, it kind of like grew from there, from like creating different products to like creating a subscription business, and then kind of like all of the other different products we created over time.
Where were you living at this point?
So when Asian Efficiency got started, I was living in Bangkok, Thailand at that time. And then I did a little detour. I lived in Budapest for a year, where I started like working at a startup there as well. I had a bunch of friends who had a startup there, so I joined them for a year. I was only supposed to be there for 4 days for vacation, but I ended up staying there for a year to help them out. And then once it became a full-time business, I moved back to the States in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Okay. So you went back to LA, got your own place and everything. And then when did you move to Austin?
So I moved back to the States in 2012, and then late 2012, early 2013. And then I moved to Austin in about 2014. Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, we got a little taste of Austin at the Ad Thrive conference. A little taste of 36th. It's 36.
Yeah, 36. You had some barbecue. You had all the good stuff.
Yeah, the donuts. Yeah, I see why they call it 36 now. But do you think you're going to be there for a while? I mean, people seem to love Austin. Like the people that I know who live there seem to not really want to leave.
Yeah, I really like this town. I was only supposed to be here for 6 months. Because I thought I was going to move to New York and live there, because I've always been a big city guy. But I loved Austin because of the small town feel. Like when you go to the grocery store, people kind of recognize you and they remember you by your name, and you run into people that you know and see. So I really like that, because in Los Angeles, it's kind of a like anonymous city. Like
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
go out anywhere and not run into people whatsoever. So you can kind of be anonymous and do whatever you want. But I kind of like the intimate setting of like just running into people, saying hi and saying hello. So I ended up renewing my lease every 6 months, thinking that I was going to move to New York. And then not too long ago, I came to New York during Christmas. Because I wanted to see Christmas and experience that. And I was like, man, it is so cold out here. No way I'm moving here. It's not going to be worthwhile living here for 6 months out of the year. So then I said, you know what? I'm going to stay in Austin. It's nice and warm and sunny, and we have good food and people here as well. So I'm going to stay here for a while.
Nice.
So when you came back in 2012, did you get or did you start working on U.S. citizenship? What's your visa status now?
Yeah, so we have.
If that's not too personal.
Yeah, no, it's totally public. We have a green card. So my grandparents, when they lived in the States, or they're still here, they lived like 50% here, 50% abroad. And they sponsored my parents. So this application was like submitted back in 1999. And it wasn't processed and approved until 2010. So it took us about 11 years to get approved. So when I got kicked out of the country, or I was left, or I was asked politely to leave the country, I should say, I kind of knew I was going to come back. I just didn't know when. It just took a while for the paperwork to kind of finalize and then do the interview and stuff. And so when my parents got their green card approved, because I was their kid and I was under 18 at that time when it was submitted, I got my green card as a result of that. So super fortunate to be able to live here now and still have my Dutch passport, so I can live in the EU if I want to, and travel. Yeah.
So when did you start getting into fashion? Because I know now you care about the way you dress. You're into designer fashion. I guess somewhat recently into watches, but was that always a passion?
I wouldn't say it was a passion because because I grew up in the Netherlands. One of the first things I noticed when I moved to the States was that most people don't dress as well compared to where I grew up. And I grew up in a relatively small town, like 250,000 people, about an hour outside of Amsterdam. So I remember when I was 15, I was wearing blazers already. Like that was like the thing to wear back then, wearing blazers, button-up shirts and stuff. And I think like the standard of people dressing in Europe is a little higher than most states. So I was used to wearing button-up shirts and kind of like wearing smaller size, like fitting clothing. And so when I moved to the States, I noticed like, oh, everybody's wearing like baggy stuff and like, like stuff is way oversized and such. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's just the thing here. So I've always worn like fitted clothing in that sense. But I didn't really get into kind of like the designer stuff until I was starting making like a decent income. Because for example, one of my favorite brands growing up was always Diesel. Right? When I was younger, especially in high school, it's like, oh, Diesel, like I love their jeans and like their shirts look so cool because it had a classy or classic look, but with a little bit of an edge. And I've always liked that because it made me like stand out a little bit compared to my friends in school, because everybody was dressed always classic. And I always wanted a little bit of a difference. So I really resonated with Diesel because their jeans were a little different or their shirts would be a little bit different. And then, for example, as I was, maturing and growing up and being able to afford nicer things, I kind of still like that style, but now it's a little bit more refined. So, for example, I think the mature version of Diesel is YSL, Saint Laurent, right? So it's kind of like it still has a classic look, but there's something like a little bit of a statement piece to it, or there's something unique about it, where you wouldn't know it is YSL, but there's something different about it, and I kind of like that style. So that's it's just sort of like a little evolvement over time. But yeah, it wasn't until like maybe 3-4 years ago when I really started to focus on like, okay, like I'm making decent income, I want to upgrade my wardrobe. David Beckham has always been a good inspiration for me to kind of see like what he wears and what he does. And then lately it's been like people like K-pop stars, kind of like seeing what they're wearing. Ever since I've been to Japan, like I'm really interested in like Japanese streetwear and kind of like what they're wearing. Like right now I'm wearing like a Bape and Adidas track jacket, like, which is, totally random. But I was like, oh man, I saw this in Japan. I was like, this is so cool. Like I want to wear this. So it's just, yeah, it's like the more you travel and the more you see different parts of the world, you just see like different things that people are wearing, right? So like when you go to Italy in the summer, like people are really wearing like lots of linen. It's like they're a little bit oversized. And it's a little bit more, like casual and loose. And then you go to New York during the winter and everybody wears black and it's like a little bit more refined and classic and stuff. And so I always get like inspiration from different places, and like I don't even know how to classify myself, to be honest.
That was definitely one of the things I learned traveling through Europe is now, like, in any airport, I can tell the Europeans apart from the Americans just on shoes. It's like, oh, that guy, really high chance he's a European because he has nice shoes.
Yeah, everybody in the Netherlands, every time I go back, I try to go back every few years, like everybody wears like chukka boots, and like Chelsea boots are like completely normal there, right? Like when you go to like different parts of Europe, people wear a lot of loafers and stuff. And like, when I watch like you guys' videos and other people's YouTube videos, like, they talk about as if Chelsea boots are like, the hot thing. And it's like, you got to wear this. It's like, man, I was growing up with that stuff. Like, that is so normal over there. Like, what's the big deal? So it's just really funny to kind of have that perspective.
You mentioned going back to the Netherlands, but one of the things that I've learned in the last year is you said you have a standing session essentially to go back to LA to see your family, really tight, close ties with your family. And I don't know if you just speak to that a little bit and like how that's really shaped you overall.
Yeah, so I read this book a few years ago, back in 2014 or 2015. It's one of my favorite books ever. It's called 30 Lessons for Living. So the whole premise of the book is that the author interviewed people who were about to die, and he asked them, like, what's one life lesson you would pass on to your kids or to the next generation? And so he interviewed thousands of people, and then he compiled it in 30 lessons. And one of the lessons that really resonated with me was, one, don't work so hard. Like, you're going to regret working so hard. And two, you spend more time with your parents and your friends and family. And so it really resonated with me because at the time, one, I was working really hard. And then two, I was not spending enough time with my friends and family. And so I'm somebody who likes to learn from others. I've always had like influential people in my life, like mentors or people who've been a little bit ahead of me, and I love learning from them. And they've always imparted wisdom on me, whether it was my uncle or somebody else, And I've always taken their advice to heart. And so I read this book, and I realized, oh man, these are the life lessons that the elderly would pass on. Like, it's only smart for me to take this on. And so from that point on, I said, okay, I should spend more time with my parents. And so even though I live in Austin, I try to fly out every 6 weeks to see them. Same thing, ever since especially since my parents got divorced, I try to see both, parties as much as I can. And same thing with my brother. Like, my brother lives in LA, my older brother lives in Amsterdam. And so I try to see them as much as I can. And if I can't fly out there, then I try to have them fly out here or something. So that I just know from the book and also from personal experience how important relationships are for your own happiness. And like, and I've been in situations where I had a lot of money, and then it's like you're kind of empty and unhappy because you don't have any friends or something. And then I've also had periods where I didn't have a lot of money, but because I had a lot of friends, I felt really good about everything. And so I definitely learned that relationships are just so important, and spending time with quality people. So one of the many reasons I love like seeing you guys at Influential or when we did Man Camp is just like spending time together and kind of like learning from each other and like, sharing ideas and stuff like that, and just hearing what you're up to and how we can help each other out and stuff like that. And it's just like the better relationships we have, like the happier we are. And, and money is just like, something that makes life a little bit more comfortable. And, don't get me wrong, like I think we all would like to have more money, but just making more money for the sake of more money doesn't really make people that much happier.
Yeah, and that's a good lead into your brunches too, because I love when you do these brunches down in Austin.
Yeah, I organize like brunches and dinner parties and like just try to bring people together. And one of the things I've kind of learned is that you guys probably have experienced this too. You probably know a lot of people by name, and you maybe recognize them when you walk down the street and you say hello and you have a little bit of small talk, but you don't really know them, right? So I wanted to create more deeper, meaningful relationships with the people I already knew. So I started hosting dinner parties, because when you host, you can invite people, you can curate who's coming, and you can that way build a more meaningful relationship with people. So I started hosting these dinner parties, And just one, a really, really fun time. I love hosting people and introducing people to new things, but also introducing new people to each other that would benefit from, getting to know each other. Um, and so, one of the things that really made me happy was when I celebrated my birthday last year. We went to a bar and I just invited a bunch of people, and then everybody came out and we packed the whole bar. It was like 60, 70 people or something. And I was like, man, this is so beautiful, because I was now seeing people that didn't know each other, like people I was doing business with, and then people I met like at a hip hop class or something. And because they're all friends of mine, we all have, similar philosophies and values. And then they got connected with each other. And then they start either dating or collaborating with each other or whatever. And it's like, wow, I made that happen. And it's like, makes me feel really good.
I like that. Definitely a lot. I mean, I've been inspired now to reconnect with some of the people that I've lost touch with when I was like working a lot and then also working on the channel. And so I like seeing those brunches you put together, and maybe at one point I can make it down to Austin at the right time. But so I feel like in the productivity space, because I used to use OmniFocus as well, there always seemed to be like a certain trend at certain times. Like for a while it was getting things done, inbox zero. Like what's going on, like either what happened in 2018 or what's coming up that you see as like a trend in the productivity space? Because I've kind of been out of it for now.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I think people are waking up to. So I think the first one is just home automation. So having like a Google Home or like an Amazon Echo, and just creating your own environment to be more productive, right? So there's a lot more automation coming in, devices talking to each other, and just like streamlining your life. I think that's going to be a huge thing over the next couple of years. But that's more technology based, right? Personal productivity is not going to change as much. But what I think a lot of people are realizing is how important energy is, because people are starting to realize that, okay, yes, I want to have more time, but energy is really one of the most important currencies that we can control and can influence, and also impacts our productivity, because you can have a whole day set aside to do your taxes, but if you don't have the energy to do it, well, then guess what? It's not going to happen, right? So people are like, the old school philosophy is kind of like, oh, let's manage our time, let's create as much time possible, and there's some value in that. But at the end of the day, what we really need to focus on is ourselves. Like, how do we manage ourselves to do the things we need to do, especially the stuff that we're currently not doing? And energy is a huge component of that. So it's like sleeping well, it's eating right, and then exercising frequently, and just sticking to the basics. And I think more and more people are starting to realize, like, okay, it's not time that's holding me back from writing my book or starting a YouTube channel, because if you really are being honest with yourself, you're either spending too much time like watching TV or watching Netflix or doing all these other things. So time is usually not the issue, but it's actually focusing yourself and having the energy to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, energy, and a big one for me is prioritization. It's like I have the time, but I'm not prioritizing it in the right way. So that's good to hear, because I used to get a lot of shit in college because I would go to bed at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and like wake up early because I really prioritize sleep. And it seems like I definitely it was Ariana Huffington, right? She had the big book about sleep a couple years ago, and so it's good to see that people need to get a little more sleep in their lives.
Yeah, there's almost no penalty for sleeping too much, but there's a lot of penalties for sleeping too little, especially as you start to accumulate what we call sleep debt. Because over time you just feel so fatigued, and like if you're somebody who as soon as you close your eyes you can like nap for 3 hours, like that's when like you're definitely lacking sleep. So definitely catch up on that as much as you can.
I just did my first float tank today.
Oh, nice. I love float tanks. I try to do them once a month, and I know you meditate as well, right? And I thought, man, float tanks, like, what's the point of this? I meditate every day for 10 minutes already. What's the point, right? But I'm curious to hear your experience. But for me, I think it's like the super power version of like meditation, because one of the things I've noticed is when I float, definitely the next 2 to 3 weeks, whenever I'm in a stressful time period, instead of just being really reactive to what needs to be done, I can actually pause for a second and like catch myself if I'm being stressed out, and then kind of like calibrate and say, okay, let's just relax for a bit. What's actually the right thing to do? Or let's actually, be conscious about what we need to do next. But I'm curious to hear what your experience has been.
Well, this was actually courtesy of Brock. He sent me a thing for it, and so I probably wouldn't have done it if I hadn't had that little push. But I definitely like I literally got home an hour ago, and like thinking back on it now, it is the thing of like I find myself so easily distracted when I try to take time out, but having that forced environment in order to say like I if I climb out of here right now, like it's a total waste. And so like having that forced time, and I feel very claustrophobic in normal life. Like I don't like being in close spaces, and that is one of like the things I'm afraid of, but I didn't even feel it in the tank. So it was like I'm very positive all around.
Yeah, I agree. It is like accelerated meditation. You know, like it. I think if I were just to sit down and meditate like on a chair, it might take 3 times as long to get into that same space as floating. You know, so yeah, I'm glad to use that experience, John. That's cool. So we like to do a series of rapid fire questions here on the show that, of course, we haven't prepared you for. But are you up for that?
Of course, let's do it.
All right, cool. So yeah, just like quick answers. Oxfords or brogues?
Oxfords for sure.
Nice. Lifting or cardio?
Oh, lifting by far. I don't like cardio at all.
Nice. Loafers or sneakers?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna go with sneakers. I think there's more variation there and more colors and colorways, so I'm gonna go with sneakers.
Well, what's your current favorite pair of sneakers?
I really like the Gucci A sneakers. The traditional ones, like the white and then like the green and red on the side. They're just so comfy, and they don't scuff easy and they don't get dirty easy, so I love them.
Nice. In terms of like style, spring, summer, or fall, winter?
Ooh, I'm gonna say fall winter just because there's more layering options, and I like the darker colors a little bit more than the brighter colors.
Nice. Morning or evening shower?
Evening shower. I always do that before I go to sleep. It helps me sleep better.
Okay. Jeans, chinos, or trousers?
Oh, jeans by far. I'm a jeans person. Diesel jeans, jog jeans, like that's my favorite.
Nice. Favorite?
Diesel loyalty.
Yeah, for life. And now you can afford all the diesel jeans you want.
Interesting fact there is up until like 2017, I'm pretty sure if you looked at my closet, I had like spring, summer, fall, winter of diesel for the like last 5 seasons in my closet from like 2012 to 2017 or something. Like no joke.
Nice.
Did you have to Marie Kondo that shit?
Yeah, I did.
I say it's episode is sponsored by Diesel. All right. Favorite James Bond, if you're a fan or have one.
I like Pierce Brosnan actually. I like them.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. I think we're all on the same page with that one. Notch lapels or peak lapels?
Oh, notch lapels for me. Yeah, I'm a smaller guy, so I think they look better on me.
Nice. Agreed. And then a final question, for if you had to have just one suit, navy or charcoal?
Oh, navy. Yeah, I think more versatile for me. And also I like blue, one of my favorite colors.
Very nice.
Says the guy in the blue tractor.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you've navigated our rapid fire questions with ease. You know, some people get really hung up on those, but yeah, you just sailed right through them.
Yeah, I mean I love those questions, and it's obviously never easy choices, but when it comes to like, for example, sneakers, like I love sneakers, and I kind of like put up with like formal wear a little bit. I love wearing formal wear, especially when I host dinner parties and stuff. But like, if I just had to wear whatever I want to wear, it'd be sneakers all the time if I could.
Agreed. Yeah, they're just so comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Like so comfortable, and also that's why I wore them when I spoke at Influential. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna wear my CPs. Like they're just super comfy.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like it's also, I don't know, maybe things are just trending more casual these days, but it's just acceptable to wear, like, especially if they're nice sneakers, like CPs or like any like minimal leather sneaker. Like it's acceptable to wear them in like a variety of situations, even with like a kind of refined outfit.
So can we talk about sneakers for a little bit? Because I know you guys are always trying out different things as well. So what are you guys wearing nowadays?
Today I've got on my Beckett Simonon like GATs, like their trainer replica type things, which I find really comfortable, and they're just kind of like a slightly different take on the minimal white leather sneaker, or in John's case, that you have the dark ones, right?
Yeah, I have the black ones, and then I have the blue ones from Oliver Cabell.
Yeah, I like them. I mean, they're like a little different. So I feel like especially if you're in like New York or something, everybody's got white common projects on. So if you have like a GAT type shoe, it's just slightly different. You know?
Yeah, and there's so many sneaker companies now. Like, I was shocked when I was putting together my roundup of like how many there. It's even just companies that do pure sneakers, like Axel Arigato. Like, I never heard of them before, but they have an entire line of like, they have high tops and low tops and minimal and unique ones. And then like Greats has some really cool shit. I know Brock has the Pronto. I have like the red and champagne Pronto, and like I keep getting compliments on them, and I think they're like cheap shoes, but people are like, oh, those are really cool, but they're not branded in any way. And so there's just, this is a great time for sneakers.
Yeah.
And of course what's going on with like streetwear and like hype brands, but even just for like normal guys, it's a great time.
Yeah, Brock and I were talking at Menfluentia. We were talking about like common projects and stuff, and now that they're becoming more common, we start to definitely notice. It was, at least with myself too. I'm starting to wear like different colors now. So, for example, instead of like the white CPs, I have like a gray one. And now I have like a cream color as well. It's like it's not quite white because everybody has that, but I want something a little bit different. So I'm gonna go for cream or gray. And you know, I love, like, for example, the CPs. I love the minimalist look in general, and like the German trainers. I like those as well because I used to wear those a lot when I was 16, because that was like back then was like a trend, and Diesel made like really awesome like German trainers as well back then, and I loved wearing those. And I miss the days where you could have like Velcro on your sneakers. Like, I miss those days because when I was in high school, like I was wearing those kind of sneakers all the time.
Yeah.
I think I see some hype Nikes now with Velcro. You can go pick up some of those. You have to that's one of those styles you have to like get the app and like get in like the queue and everything.
Yeah, the sneakers app. Yeah. I know some people are like waking up every single week for that just to get their stuff. Yeah, that's so cool.
I was surprised I got through the Ace Marks last Kickstarter. I got a pair of their sneakers, and it's like the Common Project silhouette, but it's brown leather and then a gum sole. And I wasn't sure about that colorway, but it's like super, like I wear it all the time. Like, it goes with like olive, navy, jeans. It goes really nicely with like any sort of like tan or khaki chino. It's like a really cool color.
I'm holding up the Paul Evans model of the minimalist, but it's like the Paul Evans leather, but in a sneaker, and it's brown. And I just put these on today, and I was like, oh, these are actually very nice.
Yeah, brown sneakers.
What kind of sneakers would you guys recommend for most people to kind of get started with?
Oh, definitely well, I'll jump in. I think the minimalist silhouette is like, the Stan Smiths are like, used to have those in middle school and high school, but like getting a nice something like the Gucci sneaker, but you can get that for like $180, under $200 for like a high quality leather, nice sole, very comfortable, that'll last you a long time. But I had a question. I keep getting questions of like, if you could do a minimalist, Common Projects silhouette or the German Army trainer, what would you get? And like, I would pick the trainer every time because it's unique, it's still stylish, still very comfortable. And I think if you have some sneakers, try the GATs for sure.
Yeah. I think that you can't go wrong with them. If you wanted something super basic, I would say something like the Common Project. But if you can't afford those or don't want to, I think Grace is like a really, really good option. Like, I mean, John's tried all the different minimal leather sneaker brands. I've tried a bunch of them, and I think that like Common Projects is obviously kind of a gold standard. Koyo is a really good like number 2 for slightly less money, but Greats for the price, especially if you get them on sale, is insane.
Also, the company that I've started to get more of stuff of now is Crown in Northampton. They make their shoes. They're all handmade in England, and they have cut model of the sneaker. So it's the minimalist sneaker, but it's a whole cut leather, and it's all handmade, made to order. And I keep looking at those, and I'm like, I'm going to end up buying one of those pairs right now because they look so good. But they have all kind of different styles. They even do like dress shoes and stuff too. So Crown is like this little gem that I've been paying more attention to.
One of the things I recently got into myself is more suede sneakers. Like I have like olive color suede sneakers by YSL. And I love that pair. It's like the suede kind of gives it like kind of like a different look, and it's like a little bit more like casual, and like it's still different, but it kind of looks like a little bit more uppery like in that sense. And if I had to, like, me and Brock were talking about this in Influential. We were talking about like what kind of sneaker would you wear, or if you only had to pick one. Like I think every brand has like their own like strengths and weaknesses. So for example, I love the CPs because they're so comfortable and they're easy to break in. So when you buy CPs, you should always buy them like super fitting because they're going to stretch over time, right? Whereas with, for example, with the YSL sneakers, you have to buy them like at the exact same size that fits you perfectly because they do not stretch whatsoever, and it takes like literally 30 to 45 days to break them in. And but the good thing about that pair of sneaker, in my opinion, is that the quality is so good that I remember when you guys came to Austin, I was sitting with Baron of Effortless Gen. We were having barbecue, and he was like, "Tan, are those new sneakers?" And I was like, "No, these are like 2.5 years old," and they were like the black YSL sneakers, like all black, because the leather is so stiff and hard. Like they don't scuff, they don't get dirty, so the quality stays like pretty much the same in that sense. And like the Gucci sneakers I think are the most comfortable, and they don't scuff, they don't get dirty easy. And like I can run in the Gucci A sneakers, whereas in the CPs I can't really do that, but they're more comfortable just walking. So every shoe has like a little different, and obviously everybody's foot is differently as well. It's different.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Yves Saint Laurent Museum in Morocco, in Marrakesh?
No. I believe I saw you went there, right?
Yeah, you should put that on your list. As a fan of the brand, I know of the designer, but I like didn't really know much about him. So it was really cool to like learn history and like see all the stuff. But Morocco, Marrakesh, very cool city. So you put that on your wish list.
Yeah, I saw your Instagram stories when you went there. It looks really awesome, and I love that city. It's always been on my list because I love the colorful buildings and like the colorful stuff that they have there. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Well, I'm on my list of things to do today. Speaking of productivity, I want to watch Gentleman's Gazette's video on Todd's mocks, because they do like this "Is It Worth It" series basically, and that's I think they put that one out today. And I've been thinking about, because I have this pair of camp mocks from LL Bean that I got a lot of wear out of in the past couple of years, and I've been thinking about getting like a really nice pair of moccasins, like because they're like slightly different than boat shoes, like a little more, like a little less preppy. So yeah, I'm gonna be watching that right after we're done here.
I have a pair from Minnetonka, which are all like handmade, made to order. But yeah, I saw that one pop up, and I was like, okay, this video is sponsored by Gentleman's Gazette. Please check out their YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, Raphael's not gonna love them.
I like how John is gonna turn around. You can see all these shoe boxes laying there, like it's stacked on top of each other. Well, I have a pair of Todds myself, and I have a pair of navy ones, and I really like them. And I was just super lucky. I got them on sale at Nordstrom Rack for like 50% off. So I just got super lucky, but I was never able to find another good deal unless you go to Mr. Porter and you kind of wait for their sale that they have twice a year, because then you can buy like the Todds and stuff like that for like 30 or 40% off too. But you can only buy them like when it's out of season, so you can buy like the Todd loafers and moccasins when it's like the fall and winter clearance. So sometimes you'll have to wait like a few months before you can actually wear them. But if you want to buy like designer clothing and you want to kind of like have good deals on them, like Mr. Porter sale, the Essence sale, like those are some of the best things you can wait for to buy, because that's honestly where I get most of my clothing from. I just wait for those sales to kind of happen and then buy them. And then the only time I really buy like off the rack, like when it's like, full retail price, is when I'm traveling or something. Like let's say I'm in Japan or something, or wherever, Paris, and I see something that's so cool. I'm like, oh man, I can only buy this here right now. Like, okay, I'm either going to buy it now or never ever again. So that's the only time I'll usually buy retail.
Sure. Well, do you get rid of stuff fairly often, or do you just have like 12 closets? How's this work?
Great question. So I was used to be a minimalist myself. So I used to pride myself on living out of 2 suitcases when I was traveling and even when I first moved here. And then over time, that's when the whole designer thing kind of picked up when I moved here. So I kind of like started to accumulate a lot of things. Like, for example, I used to have like one wallet. Now I have like 7 or 8 or something, right? And like some are the same model, just a different color. So for example, and so now like once a year I try to purge stuff. So when it's like Black Friday, when everybody's like buying stuff, that's the day I usually try to purge stuff as much as I can. And then I usually just donate stuff that I don't usually wear anymore. Or stuff that simply doesn't fit me anymore or whatever, or stuff that was really trendy, but I'm like, nah, I'm not going to wear this anytime soon. So I'll just donate it usually.
Nice. You know, do you sell on Grailed or anything, or you just kind of give it away?
I've only done that for like a few pieces that I know like, okay, it's going to be worth the time to kind of do it. Because usually when I purge stuff, I have like an assistant kind of like help me with stuff, like put stuff away and like stuff that I want to keep will either get steamed or something. And then the few things that I do want to sell, then she will usually put it on Grailed or eBay or whatever, and then she will just sell it. And then I give her like a small commission for all the stuff that she sells. So she's kind of incentivized as well to sell as much as possible.
Nice.
So,
Hey, 145.
Classic Asian efficiency going on right here.
Yeah.
yeah, you can get a really good deal and just say, hey, I'm not going to pay your hourly. If you just sell all this stuff, like you can just, get like 5% or whatever. You'll be surprised what people are willing to do and what they can make.
Yeah, I was thinking there have to be companies that kind of like online, like virtual estate sale companies, where if you're moving and you have to get rid of a bunch of stuff, you can like just ship, like, they'll send you like a shipping container or something, and you just get rid of all your stuff. They liquidate it for you, and then obviously you like take a cut. If that's not a service, it should be.
All right, let's trademark that right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's similar services. So for example, I got rid of a bunch of like designer backpacks and bags that I had that I don't really use anymore. And then you can, for example, send it to Fashion File or Yogi's Closet. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that's where a lot of women sell their handbags and stuff. So it's kind of like an online consignment shop. But what you can do is you can literally just send it to them, and then they will sell it for you, and then you get paid whenever they sell it at the highest price possible. Or you can sell it to them directly at a fixed price, right? So if you just want to get rid of it right away, you can do that too. So that's a few times that I've done it where I just like gave it to them and they just sold it whenever, and then I would get paid whenever we were able to sell it at the highest price. And obviously they take a cut as well, but that was super simple too.
Interesting. We've got some gems to take away from this. So is there anything that you're like excited about this year, either with your personal productivity journey and your travels, or with Asian efficiency, like in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I'm really excited about doing more keynotes. So giving more talks and getting in front of people and just sharing the message of Asian efficiency and personal productivity. So I'm really excited about that. So if anybody's listening or looking for a speaker, more than happy to chat with you. And other than that, I'm just really excited about spring and summer, just getting wear different clothes now. So I just finished spring cleaning. I literally just finished like not vacuum. Like I have these plastic bags where you can put your clothes in and then suck out the air and stuff. So I had an assistant help me out with that yesterday and kind of like rotate my whole closet now, and I can finally wear some other cool and fun things now for spring and summer. So that's the other thing I'm really excited about.
Nice. Yeah, it's always a little tricky to decide when to do that. When the weather's being weird, you're like, all right, can I put the wool sweaters away now? Or, especially if you travel, like, am I going to need them in 6 weeks?
Yeah, now that daylight savings is coming up, or when this is going to be live is already passed. But yeah, that's usually the time for me to kind of like rotate everything, and then I'll just suck it up if it's cold or whatever.
Nice. Cool. And so where can people go? We'll put all this stuff in the show notes. Where can people go to find you?
Yeah, people can go to asianefficiency.com. So that's where all the courses are, free content, the podcast as well. And if you want to listen directly to the podcast, you can search us for The Productivity Show. You'll find us on iTunes and everywhere else as well. And if you want to find me on Instagram, just look for The Real Tan. You'll find me there.
Cool. Well, thanks, man. It's great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Buttoned Up Podcast, a collaboration between John Shanahan of The Cavalier and Brock McGough of Modest Man, and we will see you next week.